Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be here all the way from Sweden to India to tell you a little bit about the project I started 10 years ago. Picture this. It's a gray November morning, 2010, and I was just going to start my morning lesson when this 11-year-old boy, Valid, came rushing into my classroom. I could see that something was wrong. He was sweating. He didn't look well. He handed me a note written in broken Swedish, and I read, "Good morning, Michael. Valid has a massive fever. Could you please send him back home directly after day of the day? He refuses to miss it. Kind regards, his mother." This is a powerful feeling that knowledge is cool. And I think we can create that feeling whenever, wherever, in classrooms, in Scandinavia, Australia, and of course we can do it in India. My name is Michael Hermansson. I grew up in the northern parts of Sweden, and my dream of becoming a great football player had at least one big problem. Here's a picture from my hometown. Yeah, the summer of 1974. So you can realize that no football for me. I had other dreams. I wanted to be a Swedish Tarzan or a president. That's impossible in Sweden. I also wanted to be a rock singer in the rock band, The Clash.
Should I stay or should I
It
go?
didn't happen. Nothing happened. Luckily, I have one more thing on my list. I loved my books and my nerdy facts. I learned all the capital cities by heart, all the flags, all the chemistry signs. I mean, I even memorized how long my favorite songs were. Beatles, She Loves You, 217, that kind of nerdy stuff. And years later, when I became a teacher, one of my main missions was to show my students that knowledge could be fun, that knowledge could be cool. And ladies and gentlemen, that was a tough mission. You know, when parents ask their children, "What have you learned at school today?" the most common answer is nothing special. And that's a heartbreaker. Well, 10 years ago, that was my classroom, my students, and I was a really tired teacher. I had three options in this crossroad: to quit, or continue complaining about it all the time, or perhaps the tough third choice, quit complaining about it and try to give this job one last chance, teaching. And I realized, Michael, you have to change a lot about your leadership, about how you teach, about how to reach out everyone. And I was lucky. At the same time, 2010, I got a new class. They turned out to be something else. They were 21 10-year-old monsters. And of course, I'm kidding with you, but this was a challenge I'd never seen before. I tried every trick in the book. After 25 years as a teacher, it didn't work. I had no chance. And I decided I will quit. In December, I'm out. But just a couple of weeks before, I got a little bit of an idea. I saw the light, and I wanted to try something new with my class of tiny, small monsters. I wanted to kickstart every morning with a mind-blowing micro lesson about whatever, persons, buildings, places, whatever, as long as it has that wow factor. Rosa Parks or Taj Mahal, whatever, as long as it has the wow. And I will show you a couple of the steps I used. Now you are my class. I will try it on you. You don't look like monsters, but that's okay. That's really, really good. Yesterday, before you left school, I gave you all a teaser, a clue like this one. He had a wonderful dream. And I can see that you all start to think right now. That's good. Totally normal. Everyone does. You go back home and try to figure it out. I go back home and I create my micro lesson. The micro lesson this morning, you come back, you have some guesses, And perhaps you say, Michael, I think that this micro lesson will be about Dr. Martin Luther King, and that's correct. So 8 minutes, just 8 minutes about Martin Luther King. A story, not just facts, a story and a wow in the end. That was one of the tricks. You listened, you learned, and you loved it. And then we have step number 3. I want you to go home tonight and retell parts from someone back home. Like, hey, Grandma, did you know that Robert Kennedy was actually speaking at Martin Luther King's funeral? And then 2 months later, he also got shot at the hotel and died. Stories with that strong factor. A clue, the pre-thinking part. A micro lesson relying on the short form, the story with a wow, like a fairy tale of facts. And then the retelling phase. That was my new formula for bringing back joy in the classroom, joy in teaching, lust for learning. And I wanted to give it a name. So in me and my class, we just said, let's call it Grej of the Day. Okay, we did. No one cared. It's not gray. It's the Swedish word grej with a J. Say after me, please. Grej. No. Grej. Ah, good. You can speak Swedish now. That's good. Grej means one thing. So it's one thing every day. Every morning, instead of nothing special, I wanted to create at least one memory that stuck. I don't want to go to India and brag, but the results of Grej of the Day were amazing. It was, my class, my monsters, they transformed in front of my eyes. School was fun. Knowledge was cool. They wanted to come back even with a fever in the morning. That's powerful. Today, Grej of the Day has started to move from this little classroom in Sweden to, more than 40 countries all over the world. 100,000 teachers are using the concept today. That's 1.5 million students. And it's really taking off right now. I got a mail like 6 months ago, and it shocked me a little bit. I was so proud. It was from Australia. It read like, "Hi, Michael. My name is Sarah from Sydney. Me and my class, we've been greying now for a year. Thank you very much. We really, really enjoy it." And reading like this, the Swedish word greying in an English text from Australia, that made me so happy. But I had no idea about all this when I started with Grej of the Day. I remember I get the idea during night. I stayed up. I planned the story with a wow and a clue. And I gave my class this one the next morning. They came back and I said, "This is the first clue in Grej of the Day. Can you solve it? Why don't the polar bears eat the penguins?" I give you 20 seconds. Check with your closest neighbor. Can you solve that clue without Googling? 18 seconds left. Let everyone have a chance to think about it. that can be one. 15 seconds left. Can you solve it? My class couldn't. They had no chance. Why don't the polar bears eat the penguins? Let me hear. Do you have the answer? It's really obvious. Yeah. They will never meet. They will never meet. The polar bears are up in the North Pole. The penguins down the South Pole. They will never meet. And my first Grej of the Day was going to be about the South Pole. I had created a story and a clue. And I said to myself, with this class, I will have one chance, one shot. So I took a deep breath, checked my watch, and I started. 8 minutes. I talked about penguins a little bit. I talked about the snow and the ice, temperatures down to minus 90 degrees. But most of all, and that means 4 minutes, I talked about a famous race from 1911. They were competing to be the first man to reach the pole. It was Amundsen from Norway. It was Robert Scott from Great Britain. And that's a that's a great story. And I could see that my class were sitting on their chairs. They were leaning forward with big eyes and big ears. And when I was done, I checked my watch. 8 minutes, 15 seconds. Perfect. But now I could see that my class, they were really, Michael, tell us more. That was the first time with my class. And I said, well, I'm sorry, it's a micro lesson. I can give you some answers, but the rest is like a cliffhanger. We'll come back to it later. And they were so frustrated. But there was one good question. Michael, will there be more Grej of the Day? I said, this might be the start of something. It was. I did 600 Grej of the Days during 6 years. I stayed as a teacher until 2015. They went home with a new clue for the next day on top of the world. And I created my first PowerPoint. The answer of this is quite obvious, I think, for you. They came back and said it must be Mount Everest. Yeah, and I gave them a new Grej of the Day about Mount Everest. 8 minutes, super short. The next day, diamonds. Day after that, Apollo 11. Totally random. But they started to enjoy learning. There's so much knowledge that's really, really fun and cool. And I always ended with a wow. Like, hey, by the way, did you know that both a 13-year-old girl and the Olympic torch have reached the top of Mount Everest? The wow trick in the end. What? Yeah, it's true. And my 11-year-old kids, they thought to themselves, we have 2 years to break that record. They wanted to break that record. Outside the classroom, we have that Grej of the Day wall with a big map, and every Grej, well, a needle, a thread, and something to remind us. We built it day by day. On the other wall, there was a timeline. Every Grej at the correct spot, year, century. This was the backbone of my new schooling. Every day, Grej of the Day, of course. The grades, wow. The lust for learning, even better. And they started to see this, that everything is linked together in a never-ending worldwide web of knowledge. And that's super cool. They wanted to come because tomorrow there's a new fun thing to know and go home and tell their parents, hey, Dad, did you know about the Eiffel Tower? It was supposed to be in Barcelona. What? I started to talk about Grej of the Day 2015. And this question was bothering me. Hey, I like it, but why does it work? Why does it work? I had no idea. So I started to travel around the world with a brain, an extra brain in my luggage. Because I knew that I have to know how we memorize things. I have to be the expert of a brain. And this is just a problem when you get to the airports. They see what I have in my bag. I found my favorite part inside of the brain, the hippocampus. The hippocampus, 2 small seahorse-shaped parts that can do a magic trick. If I can activate hippocampus, it will take short-term memories and lift them up to the long-term memory shelf. How do you activate them? Yeah, you activate them with dopamine, something with a wow. That's the trick. How about the clue, the pre-thinking part? Yeah, every study says the same. Our brain loves to be teased and set in a ready-to-learn mode. The pre-thinking effect. You can use it anytime. I used it in Grej of the Day. I mean, we don't want to know the total. We don't want to know everything at once. We want to be curious. That's the human race. My class, they loved clues. King of Sweden. They thought it was really simple. They went home. They came back and they said, well, it must be Carl Gustav. But someone was always thinking outside the box. Carl Gustav, he said. Me and my mom, we thought it was Zlatan Ibrahimovic, the football player. No, it's not, but it's good that you start to talk. Keep it short. All studies say the same. After 10 minutes, we lose focus. So I'm sorry, it's my fault. I talked too long. 10 minutes. My 8 minutes was so much better than a 60-minute session. A TED Talk is 18 minutes maximum. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, 17 minutes, 40 seconds. So keep it short. come to the chorus. And turn on the lights by using storytelling. It will never go out of style. Never. If you want someone to listen, tell them a story. It always works. Also, 2024, I promise you. And be amazing. Without that wow, hippocampus will not be activated. End it with a wow, like, hey, did you know that the tongue of a blue whale, it weighs as much as a full-grown female elephant? What? Yeah, it's true. It's true. Or did you know that when 21,000 American students were asked to pick one word that best described their feelings after a lesson, this was the winner. My friends, this is the winner. School equals boring. And that's so sad. This is called the Van Restorff effect. When you get a lot of information, all the tomatoes, this is the one that you will remember. It stands out. It's amazing. And the amazing part is what you will go home and retell. So that was the circle of knowledge in my classroom today in classrooms all over the world. They also used my learning material. TV programs in Sweden use Grej och Dave to get attention. Even big companies are interested in how could this be used for us. Right now, even the Swedish royal family use it in a project regarding art of the day. I mean, that was really good. 5 points to remember. Start with a clue. Start with a clue. Turn on the lights by using storytelling. Keep it short. 8 minutes, that's enough. Longer is not stronger. The hippocampus. It's up to us to be good at knowing when, why, and how the brain peak performs. And be amazing. At least once or twice a day, so the brain can, be activated. And for me, having a chance to come into India and fulfill one of my childhood dreams. Look at this. It's a great ending.
Should I stay or should I
Yeah,
go?
I finally got to be in the Clash on a big stage. For the record, this song is 3 minutes, 9 seconds. Yeah, knowledge can be so nerdy. And knowledge can be so cool. So cool, not even a fever in the morning might stop it. Thank you very much. Keep on graying.